Hello, and welcome back into another episode of Craven Some Raven. And yes, damn straight, 2 in 1 week, and we are in full-fledged off-season mode. But you know what? I was getting excited, feeling good. I saw some people taking their stabs at the 53-man roster pre-training camp, and so you know what? I was thinking, I'll do that. I'll go ahead and put my hat in the ring and see how close I can get. And obviously this is pre-training camp, so a lot will change after the fact once they get the pads on, once we can actually see how people hold up when hitting each other. You know, it's better for offensive linemen and some of the defensive players where we can actually see who's the better player. So this will obviously change, but it'll be cool to see, you know, how did my list change from before training camp, then to midway to towards the end of it, into preseason, to see how close I actually got. So before I get into any of that, I do have a new sponsor, a little bit of a controversial company, but you know what? We'll take a stab at it. So this episode of the podcast is brought to you by Political Dildos. Yes, you heard me correct. Political dildos. They're perfect for thrown at rallies or for personal use. We'll never tell. Ooh, this company's being so coy. We'll never tell. We have such classic designs like the Honest Abe or the Rosa Parks with suction cup that will make it unremovable from any seat you attach it to. Or continue your civil rights movement with our biggest and baddest, the Dr. King. So big, you'll need a doctor after use. Standing in at 6 feet tall and 130 pounds, this dildo has a dream of its own. So whatever your political views, we have the dildo for you. Be sure to visit our website for monthly specials. The website is www.yourlocalpd.com. And PD doesn't stand for police department. So type in the offer code Mike Pence to receive this month's special deal, which is a buy one and Frank, get an Adolf for free. Once again, visit www.yourlocalpd.com for more details. Political dildos, we trump all other plastic dicks on the market. Excellent stuff there. A real company. Check them out. They've got all your needs for political dildos, I guess, you know? Oh, God, I almost lost it on the Rosa Parks suction cup. Makes it unremovable from any seat you attach it to. That's fucked up, okay? That's fucked up. You know, I should not have read this. They're a very controversial company over here. You think with like the Honest Abe, you get like a John Wilkes Booth vibrator? Either way, doesn't matter. So, I guess I'll just get straight into things. I am probably going to do offense, then defense, just because that's how I have it written out. And just overall, I had one more defensive player than I had offensive player, plus the 3 special teamers. And man, this was not easy. So the way I did this is I just kind of wrote down all the names, just seeing what kind of number I would end up with, just right off the bat. Just write down all the names of the players who I think should be able to make the team. And so I ended up with like 56 players on the roster. So whittling down those last 3, it's super tough, especially as like a fan, dare I say super fan, you don't want to cross those names off. You don't want to straight up erase them. I was doing it in pencil, which was the smart decision. So I had an eraser, and you just erase that name, and you're like, get the fuck out of here, get off the team. It's real tough, a symbolic erasing of that guy. They're getting snapped from the team. Damn it, Thanos. So, super tough. And a reason I think it's not so much tough because I'm a fan of these players. I just think the Ravens team in general is just super deep. I think it's one of the deepest in the entire league. I'm not a fan of any of these other teams, but I would I would doubt they're as deep as we are. There's a reason that the Ravens haven't lost in preseason the past 3 years. Is it 3 or 2? I can't remember. But, they've been undefeated in preseason the past 3 years. And you want to know why? It's not because our scheme is extra special or works well against, base defense. Our base defense isn't just great against base offense that people use in the preseason. It's because our players are really talented. We have a lot of depth. That there is the old next man up. That's real for the Ravens because these guys, when they get a chance, they're excellent players in their own right. So when they step in, they have success. So it's super tough to try to whittle down these guys, get rid of players who I could see starting on other squads, if their team has a deficiency in said area. So I'll get into it and I'll kind of go over the case-by-case kind of per player and what was going through my mind here. So I guess I'll just start with the most important position on the whole fucking team, and that's the goddamn quarterback, not the dime back, not the nickel back. I was about to start singing some Nickelback, but that's when people would stop listening. It wasn't the political dildos, it was the Nickelback reference. So, the quarterback. So obviously, I had 3 making this roster. I had Lamar Jackson, RG3, and Trace McSorley. Obviously, you got Lamar Jackson. He is our starter. He is the chosen one. I don't want to get into it because I will talk for another hour without getting into any of the other positions. But RG3, he is our main backup. We did re-sign him or do a tender. It was one of those things where, he could have left, but he decided to stay and sign with us. And the only difficult thing here is Trace McSorley. Like, what do you do with him? I think whether they use him in that Taysom Hill role or not, I think he's still on the team. I think if Lamar were to go down, RG3 were to go down, this is a running quarterback team. So you need 3 guys. Now, it's going to be awesome if Trace McSorley can kind of do some of these other things. If he is a successful punt returner, that would kind of, I think they want him to do that because they're going to need this third quarterback. But, they also need a punt returner. And they don't want to have a guy who's the designated kind of punt returner taking up maybe like a corner slot or a wide receiver slot. They'd rather have someone who's already going to be taking up a roster spot to fill that void. So I guess I'll just move on to running backs now. Yeah, so that's the end of the old quarterback. Now on to the running back. And I have 4 making this roster. Surprising? I know. No, this was real tough. But I mean, where Mark Ingram, he's going to be the starter. We signed him to a pretty nice deal. I mean, not making too much, so I could see him maybe not becoming a bell cow as a lot of national media members think he's going to be, this bell cow, and he's going to get all these carries. I could see him, rushing for 800 yards, but I could also see Gus Edwards also rushing for 800 yards. I think he's going to split the carries, kind of like the way Gus Edwards and Kenneth Dixon did last year. So I think I got Mark Ingram, Gus Edwards, Justice Hill, the rookie, and then I have DeLance Turner making the team, leaving out Sir Kenneth Dixon, the bunny wabbit himself. The hibbity hop, don't stop, honey buns, pancakes, whatever you want to call him. I have him not making this team. And you think with 4 running backs making this squad, it would be him. This was one of the toughest, the toughest positions. I figured, I'm going for running backs because I think they will end up using 4 running backs throughout this year, whether they go into the season with 3 and have them on the practice squad. I'd rather just see them, bring them in, have them be on the roster to start with, because you never know who's going to have the hot hand. I feel like that's what they're going to do. Who's got the hot hand will do that. I saw a stat where it's like Gus Edwards is like 4th in the league between the tackles, but like 24th outside the tackles, and Mark Ingram was like basically the reverse. So it's like, a little thunder mixed with some of Lamar Jackson's lightning, throwing Justice Hills a change of pace. And I also like Delance Turner, what he did last year. He was brought up to the team before Gus Edwards, so I think they like him. And I'm just putting money on Kenneth Dixon doing something to fuck up his roster spot, either getting injured or rocking some PEDs. I did see today or yesterday, it was something about him driving. Apparently that was nothing, but still, he's doing some shit that he shouldn't be doing. So it is a Kenneth Dixon contract year, so maybe it would be smart to have him on the roster. This is his time. He's going to be looking for that money. He's going to be looking for that bankroll, But I like Delance Turner's upside a little bit more, and that home run ability. Kenneth Dixon's a little bit just too slow for me. Now, I guess I'll move on to the offensive line. I kind of split this up into tackles and then like guard center type. So I'll just get into that. So at tackle, I have starting left tackle Ronnie Stanley, starting right tackle Orlando Brown. And then for the backups, I have James Hurst and Greg Senat. Tackle is one of those positions where it's like, man, do you just keep one backup? Do you got to keep two? But it's also, we might have to wait and see till training camp. Greg Senat, he was a draft pick. But at the same time, I could see, maybe one of these undrafted guys just coming in out of nowhere and killing the game and pushing. I'm hoping James Hurst, get him off the fucking squad. But just from what he's getting paid and to his starting experience, I think he's got to make this squad. And then Greg Senat, I think they just like his upside, and he was an actual draft pick. So it's going to take, some excellent play from one of these undrafted rookie free agents to make the squad as a tackle. So, yeah, so that's the only thing about the offensive line. They need to be able to hit and defend against people hitting, and not wearing pads. You can't really get a good idea, for what they do up against the bull rush. So, at guard and center, this is tough. I mean, Jermaine Illuminor, he's been taking all the first team reps recently, so I just put him as the starting left guard, and then I still have Matt Skura as the starting center, and then obviously Marshall Yanda at right guard. So I think, oh shit. So I think here, I think it's between Jermaine Illuminor and Ben Powers for that left guard spot. So, all right, let me just read off all these. So, Jermaine Illuminor, Matt Skura, Marshall Yanda, Bradley Bozeman, and Ben Powers. Notice I left off Alex Lewis. I think he's just like Kenneth Dixon. He is going to get injured. He is going to mess up his shoulder. And I think it'd be better for the Ravens, as great and as cool of a guy he is. It'd be better if we just kind of, part ways with this man. It's like, all right, you've been injured every single year you've been in the league. You're not good enough. I mean, you are pretty good, but you're not good enough to, waste a roster spot. The roster spots are too valuable. I mean, the roster spots are make more money. These last roster spots make more money than I'll make in, years. Maybe even my whole life. So, these roster spots are very valuable. So, I have Ben Powers actually being the backup at left guard and maybe finding his way onto the starting roster, maybe with an injury or with possibly, just outplay. I thought he was a great guard. I thought he was a steal. And I think he fits our offense very well. And then Bradley Bozeman, I just have him as the backup, the backup center. I think if Marshall Yanda were to go down at right guard, I think maybe James Hurst would step into that role before Bradley Bozeman would. Bradley Bozeman, he was a center in college for Alabama. I think he might just be able to straight up outright beat Matt Skura. Remember, Matt Skura is not the Cura. Although I think Skura played better than any of us anticipated, it's still just not what you want to see. And the center is going to be a super important part of this team because we're going to do a lot of those read option plays, a lot of shotgun, running from the shotgun. So that mesh point where like 3-4 guys meet on one play, it all starts at the center. He's got to get it in the right spot. So, we need 2 starting caliber centers, and I think Bradley Bozeman could be that, especially, playing at Alabama and at his native position. Because if one of these guys were to go down, we need a backup plan. We need someone else who can step in there, just due to how important it is, that mesh point for us. So that's gonna do it for the offensive line. So tight ends, I got the big 3: Nick Boyle, Mark Andrews, Hayden Hurst. Those aren't in any sort of particular order. These are the obvious 3. I was thinking about maybe adding a 4th tight end, because I think tight ends are going to be a huge part of this offense, just like running backs. So it's like, might as well bring 4 guys in. But I think we'll be able to stash on the practice squad one of these undrafted rookie free agents. I think, the guy from Purdue or the guy from Delaware, I think are both, pretty good options. Just seeing their tape from college, or at least their highlight tape, they look like good tight ends. I mean, the guy from Delaware, he's just a spitting image of Nick Boyle. He's just a new Nick Boyle. So really, that'd be pretty cool to keep him on the practice squad. So next, the big old question, the wide receivers. Oh, Ravens fans and their wide receivers. God damn it. So I only have the Ravens keeping 5 wide receivers. Oh, what the hell? But we got so many guys. Yes, I know. But I'll explain myself. So I have Willie Snead, Marquise Brown, Miles Boykin, Chris Smart, and, drumroll, Jaleel Scott making this roster. Now, I think it's tough. It's tough. There's so many guys who seem to have success, and it's like every single year these guys ball out in preseason. Someone's making a name for themselves, but they never end up on the roster. So it's whatever, and it's no matter how many wide receivers we keep, you only ever see or hear about 3 of them during the regular season. They ball out in preseason, but then you hear none of them during the regular season. And I think, that last spot going to Jaleel Scott, that's just based off of what we heard from minicamp, that he's been balling out in minicamp. Hopefully he can continue that. But you just never know. But since he has the hot hand, I think right now, and being a draft pick compared to the undrafted guys, I have him making the squad over someone like a Seth Roberts, who we did sign. But I think he beats out him. He beats out Chris Moore. I think they prioritize draft picks over, maybe low money signings. I don't know how much Seth Roberts is making. But, maybe if they do decide to bring in a 6 wide receiver, it would be either a Seth Roberts or maybe an Antoine Wesley, who seem to be balling out. And I know with the wide receiver position, it's like, hey, you need a basketball team of guys. You need one of everything. You need a small speed guy. You need a route runner. You need a jump ball guy. You need a possession guy. You need all these different guys. But you know what? The Ravens, they don't need any of that. They just need some goddamn wide receivers who can catch the ball. Okay, they need some guys who can catch the ball, have success getting open, and I think these are the best 5 to do it. And only keeping 5, you get an extra roster spot somewhere else. So that's really the thinking behind that, and the fact that it's like no matter how many wide receivers they keep, you only hear from 3 of them, 3 to 4 of them, and that's depending on injury. And the Ravens, this is all obviously depending, very injury dependent. But the Ravens have been relatively healthy. They don't get any of the my hamstring, I'm not. My body's not ready. They don't get those type of injuries anymore. Now, you still get, like, broken bones and torn Achilles and freak accident type things, like any team, but they don't get those not as many soft tissue injuries as they used to. And the soft tissue injuries that they do get, it's usually a rookie. It's usually someone coming in who hasn't prepared their body the same way these pros have. Speaking on how difficult this was, and I was saying before, this is one of the deepest teams, and they've been one of the deepest teams for a long time. like for as long as I can remember, the worst they ever went was 5-11, and that was super shocking. And that came with tons and tons of injuries. And after that season, after they had all those injuries, they brought in Steve Saunders, their workout guru kind of guy, and they've kind of upgraded his position a little bit. And I think it's because of him, there's a direct correlation to when we started finishing the season with a lot of our starters to him joining our team. It took like 2 years or so. Everyone's kind of workouts to really get together. I think it's that whole balanced body type mentality. Keep the small muscles between your muscles just as strong as your main guys. Because that's where the injuries happen. An unbalanced body will cause injuries. So I think that, plus just a deep roster. I don't even know where I was going with this, but yeah. So the 5-11 is the worst they've gone. So this is a very deep squad. I guess that's where I was going with that. I really don't know. So I guess I'll just move on to the defense. And obviously, I had a little bit more. I had a tougher time with the defense because I think they should all make it. Hey man, everyone should be on the team, man. I know I got long hair, but I ain't that much of a hippie. No, this is cutthroat. This is the NFL. No mercy, motherfuckers. So I just had more players on the defense because first I think the Ravens prioritize defense a little bit more, and also it's a reaction type thing. Defensive players get more tired. You need a good defensive line rotation just because the offensive line, they play every snap, but the defensive linemen, they don't. And it's like, well, why are they getting tired? It reminds me of it's almost like a bull and the guy riding the bull. The defensive line, they're like the bull trying to buck off the cowboy on top. Like, yeehaw, I'm going to stay on. So the offensive line, they're just going to have to whoa there, whoa there, whoa. And then the defensive lineman, they just got to try to buck that guy off and then get to the quarterback. And so they're putting in way more effort to try to get them off them, to get the tackle off of them or to get the offensive lineman off them. So they're putting in way more effort and they're a lot bigger. Yeah, so they're just doing a lot more. I think in general, defensive line is one of the most athletic positions in all of sports. Yeah, you heard me correct. Because you're talking about guys who are pushing 300 pounds who can run a 4.8 40. Are you fucking kidding me? Do you realize how crazy that is? It's like heavyweight boxers. It's like they're the most popular of the boxers because you see them in person, you're like, oh fuck, this guy could kill me. I mean, you see a featherweight, I'm sure they could still whoop my ass and kill me. But you see them in person, you're like, you little bitch. 130 pounds, little bitch. But then you see a defensive lineman, someone who's damn near 300 pounds and can run faster than you. That is fucking scary, okay? That is some superhuman shit. So defensive line, I think that is one of the most athletic positions, some of the most athletic people in all of sports, Being able to be that big and that fast and quick, it's ridiculous. Some people say corner, yeah, they got speed and agility. But I mean, don't fuck with the defensive lineman. So, yeah, I guess I'll just get into who I think is going to make the team as a defensive lineman. I got Brandon Williams, big old boy Michael Pierce, Tubby. I got Willie Henry, Dalen Mack, Chris Wormley, Zach Seiler, and Gerald Willis. So that is 7 guys on the defensive line. On most plays, there's going to be 3 of these guys on the field. Or if it's an obvious passing situation, maybe none of them. But, obviously some of these guys are going to be game day scratches, depending on what they want to do. And, I don't really know. Gerald Willis might not make the roster, but I think he is a good interior pass rusher that, brings something a little bit different to the game. And I think, there's going to be one undrafted rookie free agent. So he's the one guy that I had undrafted guy who I had making the team. And, Zach Seiler, I really liked what I saw from him. He didn't really get much game action. He was inactive, I think, almost the whole season. But I really did like what I saw from him. And I think Chris Wormley, he's going to take a step up. Dalen Mack, we just drafted, so there's no way they just drop him. I think the biggest question, maybe besides Gerald Willis, will be Willie Henry. He's coming off an injury. I think this might be a contract year for him. It might be. I don't know. Is it the 2016 contract year? I don't know. But, he's coming off an injury. He is a good interior, pass rush guy. So I think Willie Henry and Gerald Willis, they might be battling for one spot, but I just decided to include both of them. I think you can't have too many defensive line. Like I was saying before, you need that rotation. And so, moving on to outside linebacker / pass rush, I got Matt Judon, Tim Williams, Shane Ray, Pernell McPhee, Jalen Ferguson, and Tyus Bowser. And I think there's going to be a battle between Shane Ray and Pernell McPhee. And I thought maybe when I was first thinking about it, I was like, okay, one of these guys is getting cut. But the more I thought about it, it's like, why? They both have experience. I think they still both have it. They still got it. They can still play on a good defense, especially. Shane Ray was working with the ones, and I think Pernell McPhee is the dog, as he likes to call him. So I think both, could have a big role on this defense. I think Matt Judon, I think he's going to end up like getting fined or getting injured or something. That's just an opinion. He's going to get suspended for something he does on the field. You just wait and watch, because I don't like his actions. He's kind of a dick. Either way, and another like Tyus Bowser is like, will he make the roster? He didn't get enough chances. I think he's talented enough for sure. But what made me decide to keep him on the roster, I was thinking about erasing that name, is first, he's a recent draft pick, which I don't think you should take too much into consideration. But when it comes to an outside linebacker who can also cover, these dual kind of guys, these amoeba type players. So I think Tyus Bowser is one of those guys. Someone who can play outside linebacker, rush the quarterback, but also still have success when dropping back and getting into coverage. He had that interception his rookie year, and I was hoping to see that more this upcoming year, but they really didn't ask him to do that much. They didn't ask him to even really be in the game. And so I could see, them throwing out a defense where it's all these tweener guys. Like, there's no one who it's like, oh, he's obviously the run stuffer. He's obviously the linebacker. No, you just get, so you get, like Michael Pierce, Willie Henry, Pernell McPhee, Tyus Bowser, and then like Anthony Levine, Patrick Onwuasor, then like all the different cornerbacks and some safeties, and you just have this defense where it's like, okay, literally some of these linemen could just drop back in coverage, and these guys can just blitz up front. It'd be super confusing, which is just something I would like to see. And I think, you have a guy in Tyus Bowser who is really good at covering for being an outside linebacker. He's really fast, so I think, you can't get rid of that kind of a talent. Obviously, Jalen Ferguson, he's a rookie, sack daddy. Let's see with all these guys in there if he can actually have some success. I think it's going to be like him and Tim Williams battling for that, strictly pass rusher type role, where I think Pernell McPhee, Matt Judon, and Shane Ray will be kind of the every down outside guy. So moving into inside linebacker, I have Peanut, Kenny Young, Chris Board, and I included Anthony Levine as an inside linebacker. So I have them bringing in 4. And, who knows in training camp, maybe one of these undrafted rookie guys will make a name for themselves, flying all over the field, great in coverage, and it's like, well, maybe we got to keep him. But I think John Harbaugh kind of alluded to it, and I alluded to it before he even alluded to it. So take that, John Harbaugh. I know what you're doing. I know what you're thinking. Thinking using a Swiss Army knife as a inside linebacker like Anthony Levine. He is a traditional, or he comes from the safety kind of spot. You bring him down, he's fast, he's mean, he knows how to cover, but he's great against the run. And I think, I think we're seeing the death of the inside linebacker. And I know teams like us or the Seahawks, now they want to run it more. It's like, oh, well, you don't have a good run stuffing inside linebacker, well, we're just going to run it straight at you. I don't think that matters nearly as much. I think having speed at that inside linebacker position for coverage is way more important than someone who can stuff the run. Because, frankly, if you're stuffing the run, you need to have a good defensive line more than anything. You need to have guys up front who can take on the double team, so it's just an open lane for whoever is that inside linebacker. Even if it is an inside linebacker, we should just call them nickelbackers. God damn it, I did it again. That's 2. All right, I'll dock myself. I'll give myself penance or whatever, when the people whip themselves. Not today. I will never say nickelback again. So it's kind of, the death of the inside linebacker. They're basically just bigger safeties. They're just box safeties with extra fun. I mean, Pino, he was a safety, so yeah. And I guess Chris Board too. I guess he's been making a lot of headway in minicamp. John Harbaugh talked him up without being prompted, so good stuff there. So cornerback, this was tough. It was, do I want to keep an extra cornerback or an extra defensive line? And I chose defensive line, and maybe that was the wrong choice because I think maybe corner might be a little bit more important than defensive line. So, with that, I have Marlon Humphrey, Jimmy Smith, Brandon Carr, Tavon Young, Anthony Averett, and Iman Marshall. So obviously, Iman Marshall, he's a rookie. Maybe he might get stashed on the IR. He might get that Owings Mills cold that everyone seems to get in their rookie year. Just stash him for next year. Maybe leaving a spot open for someone else. And maybe they add another guy. I did not include Maurice Kennedy or Cyrus Jones. Or a guy they signed in Justin Bethel. Someone who maybe won't play much on defense, even though I think he's underrated as someone to play, when he plays in zone coverage, as a nickel corner, as that nickel corner, I think he had tons of success, and when it comes to like rate of success, getting his hands on balls and everything. But he was more, Justin Bethel, he was seen more as a special teams ace kind of guy. And I think there is room on this roster for that kind of guy. Because I kept erasing and putting him back on over a guy like Cyrus Jones, who's going to just be the main punt returner. And I think, just Trace McSorley being that guy, I decided to keep him off the list. And Maurice Kennedy, he's always getting hyped this time of year, but then he gets injured. He gets knocked out. So I think this is finally the year where they're like, no, we're done. We're done with you. So obviously Marlon Humphrey, he's being a stud. He's going to get that paper in a couple years. Jimmy Smith, he's getting older. So is Brandon Carr. So I'm thinking, maybe the Ravens want to keep some extra corners just because, first, they are getting old. I think Jimmy Smith at least has durability issues, and Brandon Carr, he doesn't. But, they are older. You never know. But it's also the fact that you want to keep guys on the roster. You don't want another team to pick up these guys because I think, Justin Bethel, Maurice Kennedy, and Cyrus Jones are good enough to play on damn near any team. We are just so goddamn deep at the defensive back position, and it's like, well, what do we do with these guys? I don't think we can really stash them on the practice squad. So I have them just keeping 6, and it even makes sense. On average, you have 3 corners on the team, so you need a backup for each guy. But I could see them bringing in more. But moving on to safety, I have Earl Thomas, Tony Jefferson, and Deshaun Elliott. You could put Anthony Levine here, but it doesn't really matter. I just included Anthony Levine as an inside linebacker, but there's no question. We signed Earl Thomas. He's amazing. Tony Jefferson's back. He's amazing. Deshaun Elliott's making headways in minicamp. There's no reason he wouldn't make the squad, and I thought he was good last year too, so there's no reason he wouldn't be on this list. But I did leave out Chuck Clark, and that was one of those things where it's like, man, I just had to erase the name because it's like, well, I had to get rid of two guys, and it's like I have so many defensive guys. Maybe I should have erased one of these defensive linemen, but I didn't know who to erase either. And I felt more comfortable erasing Chuck Clark and Justin Bethel. Bethel? I don't know. And then on special teams, obviously Justin Tucker, Sam Cook, and Morgan Cox. Sam Cock and Morgan Cox. Fucking gays. No, they're cool. Got nothing wrong with the gays. So, yeah, so like I said, some honorable mentions, some guys that I had just missing. I talked about Kenneth Dixon, talked a little bit about Chuck Clark, talked about Justin Bethel, Maurice Kennedy talked about, and then Terrell Bonds. I believe he's the corner who's been, I forgot to talk about him when I was talking about corners, but yeah, Terrell Bonds, he had those interceptions at the end of minicamp there, so we'll see how he does at during training camp and then into the preseason. We saw a guy like Justin. What was that guy? Either way, he kept making plays and he ended up making the squad. And he was an excellent corner, but he kept getting injured. So one of those things. Maybe he'll be a practice squad guy. And then all of the wide receivers, the undrafted guys who are balling out. I kind of talked. It's like, well, what the fuck do you do? What the fuck do you do with them? They can make all the plays in the world, but we can't keep all of them. The disparity or the difference between our number one and what would be our number 8 guy, I don't think it's as big of a difference as it should be. We need to get some guys who are, boom boom guys. There's no reason he wouldn't be on this roster. He is the guy. We just haven't had one of those guys ever. So really, it's just a toss-up every single year on someone making the roster. And these undrafted guys come in and somewhat outperform the starters, but it's like, well, we're paying the starters more, so they're on the squad. It's just one of those things, man. So, yeah, after doing this, man, it's super fucking tough. There's a CB, I don't know, one of those meetings for the Players Association or whatever, where there's going to be a new meeting, CBA, that's what it's called. A CBA meeting, one of those things, to try to renegotiate some rules and stuff for the players. And after, this is the first time I've ever really tried to predict the 53-man roster, really write it down and put a lot of effort into it. And, it's super tough. And so since it's super tough, why not just make it easier on myself? But it kind of makes sense. I think they should get rid of the practice squad. I don't know how many players are on the practice squad, but I say you get rid of the practice squad. But what you do is you maybe add those guys to the roster. Maybe you get rid of 2-3 positions. Maybe you have just a 60-man roster. Just add 7 players to the roster because at the end it's you got to have these guys on. The competition's so tough. You wish you can have those guys. When it comes to practice squad, it's fucked up because any team can steal one of your practice squad guys and put them on their team. If you're trying to stash somebody, which you really can't do, someone who you think is a really good player, but you just happen to be really deep at a position. You just happen to be, with us with corner, it's we just happen to be super deep at corner. So it's we can't really stash any of these guys. Someone goes down, we'd like to bring up another guy. But, the second any of these corners, a Maurice Kennedy goes to the practice squad, someone else is going to pick him up. and they won't be able to play with us. And they know our system. They benefit our team. They would benefit the Ravens more than they would, I don't know, or it would hurt the Ravens more than it would benefit the new team he's going to, if that makes any sense. So let's say Maurice Kennedy doesn't make the squad and we try to put him on the practice squad. So let's say another team, they got all sorts of injured in the preseason, so they need another corner. They go ahead and sign Maurice Kennedy to their roster, which I think would be a steal because he's starting caliber. He's an excellent player. So he goes to their roster, but he doesn't know their defense. He doesn't know what they're running. But if we had an injury, now he's gone. We have to bring in someone else. We have to steal someone else's practice squad player. And it's this whole ring around the fucking rosy merry-go-round bullshit with these players where it's like if they could just stick with a squad, they might be able to make the team and have success and maybe be a star. It's just they don't get a chance because they keep getting passed around like a common whore on Dollar Day. Okay? That's when whores only cost $1. It's Dollar Day. Either way. So I say, expand the roster to a 60-man roster. You're still going to have the tough decisions at the end of it, but you'll have more guys on the squad. No one can be poached. See what I'm saying? You might have less guys on the team, but no one can be poached. Or maybe you still have a practice squad after that. You still do the poaching, but at least improve the roster. You can keep the amount that you dress each game to 46. You can do that. Or, maybe bump it to 53. Why is it even 53 in the first place? That is such an arbitrary fucking number. It's like, okay, you got 11 starters on offense, 11 starters on defense. That's 22 players. Add in some backups. That's 44 players. What the fuck is 53? Okay? So, it's an arbitrary number to start with. Let's make it easier for the players to, have some success. It's a player-driven league. Let's be nice to them. Let's actually, they're doing this, I don't know. The commissioner, Roger Goodell, it's about the players. It's about the players. But he doesn't put his fucking money where his mouth is. I say, increase the roster size, maybe decrease the practice squad guys. So if you want to poach a player, so it's like the same, maybe it's still the same amount of people. So the total, like 53 plus the practice squad, I don't know what that number is. But let's say you just add 5 more roster spots and subtract those 5 from the practice squad. So you still have a practice squad, this whole poaching bullshit system, but teams are going to be less likely to use it. And dressing 46, it's like, why have a 53-man roster and then only dress 46 players? That makes no fucking sense to me. I don't understand that. So maybe, if the roster is 60 people, maybe you dress 53. Just more players on the field. Okay? Give yourself, different looks on the team. It doesn't hurt anybody. I don't know what it hurts. Is there like some sort of fire restriction for the sideline? Is there only allowed to be a certain amount of people? Yeah? Is it for fire safety? You can only have so many players in a spot? It's fucking stupid. Crazy rant. Yeah. So one other thing that I thought about trying to find a way to get Corey Vedvik on, the beginning of the season roster. Because like I said, you can't stash a player, and I think he is a starting caliber kicker/punter. I would like to see the Ravens try to trade him before the end of things. I think you still might be able to trade, even though you have to put him on your practice squad. I think you might still be able to get a trade because I think with the practice squad there is some kind of lottery system. So the first team, or the team that wants him the most might not be first in line to get him. So maybe they'll have to trade for him. But there's so many teams in the league right now that have like 1,000 kickers that trying out for the team because they just don't have anybody who's got any success. And he had success. Corey Vedvik had some success last year. And I think there's no reason he won't do well this year. And I think he could be a starting guy in this league. I don't know if you're allowed to be a punter and kicker at the same time. I think you have to have two separate guys. But, he has the ability to do both. And I think he would make anyone's squad. It's just, you want to get value for that. You have this commodity. Someone who was an undrafted guy. You have this commodity. You want to be able to trade basically a free chip for nothing. You're playing with house money at this point. So I was trying to, figure out a way to get him on the roster. But a lot of these last roster spots, they're too valuable. Like I was saying at the very beginning of this, it's too valuable, and getting an extra kicker on the squad, that's just, it just ain't worth it. So, yeah, we could totally get something like the Bears have 1,000 kickers trying out, and none of them are working. How many times it would suck, but the Steelers, they've never had a kicker really. There's so many teams have trouble. Tampa Bay, they can't seem to land a kicker. The Chargers. So this guy would work well on any one of these squads. And I forget what it's called. When you gotta wait in line to pick up a player. It's like in fantasy. Fuck, I can't remember it right now. Some kind of list. But either way, one of these teams is going to want him enough that they don't want to wait in line. They're going to go up and, hey, pay you extra for that ice cream cone, So, hopefully that happens. We can get a draft pick, maybe pick up another guy pick up a draft pick, and so that hopefully next year we'll have the same fucking issue. Who do we put on this fucking team? Who do we do? Blah, 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 blah. Either way, that's going to do it. That was my opinion on the 53 before training camp. Whether I'm right, which I am, or I'm wrong, which I'm not, let me know how you feel about my roster. If you're on YouTube, comment. Leave a comment. Let me know. Maybe show me who you think I got wrong, or who you think I got right. I guess you can comment that. That'd be kind of weird. If you're listening on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, give me a rating. I would like to be on iTunes front page. When you look up in iTunes, when you type in Baltimore Ravens podcast, I don't show up on the first fucking page. And, if you're not on the first page, you might as well be on another fucking planet. But what's dumb is a goddamn Lions podcast shows up on the front page. I'm craving some Raven, damn it. So if you're on YouTube and you want to be able to lock your phone, put it in your pocket, listen to some great Ravens content, then, watch on iTunes. That's where I get most of my downloads, so I figured you might want to watch it there. Oh, also, got a comment from my man Edgar Allen on my last one, which is awesome because I love the videos, bro. If you're listening to this, shout out, man. I love watching your videos, breaking down of Ravens-specific pro tape. I use it all the time to validate my opinions on certain players. It's like I'm not the best at evaluating specifics, but I know football well enough to know what I see. I'm got the eye test. This guy's killing it. That's about my extent. I know this guy's killing it. Then I go to your video and you're explaining why he's killing it. You're explaining the scheme and everything. You're making badass videos. So thanks for liking my video, giving a shout out. That's what's up. So that's going to do it for me right here, right now. So I'm just going to leave you with a go Ravens!